call the meeting to order. I see a couple of Boy Scouts in the back. Maybe you can come up with the Pledge of Allegiance for us. And I think our Fargo Youth Initiative, they're going to help us as well because you're all sitting in the front row. So I assume you wanted to help lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that right? Okay. Come on up. You can come right up next to this group here. You ready to lead us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It was almost a little loud up here. We could hear it. Roll call, please.
Gary.
Here.
Grinberg.
Here.
Pepcorn.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. A couple things going on in the community. In health, the partnership with the Jefferson Neighborhood Association, Fargo Cass Public Health hosted a Heart and Soul Community Cafe on May 13th. Approximately 60 people attended the meal to build their own lunch bowl and were served toasted banana bread with vanilla ice cream for dessert. Area farmers who donated to the event included Velo Farm, Hughes Gardens, Legacy Gardens, and Dirt Head Microgreens. Members of the Jeremiah program assisted Ugly Food of the North in preparing food for the event. Everybody is invited to attend the community CAF events. People can enjoy a meal and pay only what they are able to. Events are hosted each month in a variety of locations throughout Fargo Moorhead and should be on our website. Library. There are several interesting and engaging programs happening in the library this week and next for the residents of all ages. The summer reading program starts June 4th, called Libraries Rock, is this year's theme. A video produced with the assistance of Brian Sellen of the City of Fargo Communications Department was sent to all the Fargo school areas, or all the area schools, to let kids, teachers, school librarians, and administrators know about all the events and activities planned as part of the summer reading program, which is free and open to the public. If you are thinking of visiting some of North Dakota state parks this summer, keep in mind that the library has park passes to check out. We're not quite sure where the Teddy Roosevelt Library is going to be yet, but you could go out to the Theodore Roosevelt Park if you'd like. Guidelines for use of the park passes are listed on each pass. The police, I don't know if the chief is going to do this, but the law enforcement torch run for the Special Olympics will be held on June 7th. This year it's the 50th anniversary celebration of the Special Olympics in North Dakota, and the team runs from how far to where? Just downtown. I thought it was from Bismarck to Fargo, no? Last week was Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Week. Officers wore their black bands and flags through at half-staff to remember the fallen law officers and their families. Chief David Todd said it was a week to take pride in the organization that protects and serves the public. How about taking pride? The marathon was just last weekend, and everybody seemed to enjoy it. It was well attended. Our 5K is getting to be really popular, to which story Bruce Grubb reminded me at one time. Denny Wallaker was a rather big man, and he used to host the starts of many of the races. And the start of the 5K, he said, runners get ready to go on this event. He said, you know, I would have done this race and joined you, but I have a hamstring injury, so I can't do it today. Now, many of us doubted that he ever even would have done the 5K, but we liked the enthusiasm. Police and the community really worked well at the marathon. We had a great attendance, and a lot of people came out. We were very pleased with it, and it was a great event. And Public Works gets kudos as well because they filled some of the potholes so none of the runners would hurt themselves when they ran. So thanks to them as well. Lastly, Senator Zinke is in state this week, and Commissioner Pepcorn and I have been asked to go out and meet with him to talk about the Red River Valley water supply. So on Wednesday, we'll be going out and doing that and pushing forth getting water from the west to the east. So a lot of stuff going on. Go back to the order of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda, moving items 3 and 20 from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? And I'd like to have item 3 at the beginning of the agenda only because Travis Cook has another event he has to go to tonight. We'd like to have a discussion on that ordinance. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of May 7th regular meeting, 2018 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any changes in the minutes or corrections? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve consent agendas 1 through 39, excluding items 3 and 20, which have been moved to the regular agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote then.
Grinberg,
Aye.
Gehrig,
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. So we'll move to the regular agenda, and we'll start with item 3. I'm sorry to slow you guys just a little bit, but we'll have that item first, and then you're up. So this is Chief Todd or Steve Sprague, or who's filling in for who here?
Mayor and Commissioners, Chief Dave Todd, Fargo Police Department, standing in for Steve Sprague today. And before you, we have the proposed ordinance draft regarding the downtown, the DCP Community Partnership and e-permit, allowing consumption outside during special events that are only DCP functions. And we have been through this with Nancy Morris. She's prepared the draft.
I think Nancy is here too. Nancy, you want to come up to the podium in case there's questions, please?
And Nancy can get a little more to the detail, but speaking on behalf of law enforcement, I'm satisfied with the way this ordinance has been laid out and the security issues that we'll work together on. And I think we're ready to move ahead, and I know Commissioner Pipcorn suggested having a kind of a sunset on this as a kind of testing the waters with the ordinance to see how it works, which I think is a prudent idea, and we're ready to go.
Nancy, do you want to comment to it?
Sure, I'd be happy to. This is the culmination of a number of meetings that we've had with the DCP. It was brought to Liquor Control Board some time ago. Rather than move forward from Liquor Control Board, we did come to a City Commission to get a blessing of spending the time and energy in putting something like this together. It went back to Liquor Control Board. We did present just a bullet point of terms for consideration. Liquor Control Board voted unanimously to move it forward to this commission.
And Travis, you want to make a comment?
Well, just, we thank you. We, at the DCP, we just feel that this creates a special experience for people visiting downtown, that we keep this local, that it's only for special events. This is not going to be a pub crawl or some other type of event. This is going to be very specific, and we're going to make sure that we do it the right way. So we support this.
Thank you. Melissa, did you have any comment?
We've been working on this since February and appreciate your time. We've put some checklists in place, partnered with all the leaders in town, and we want to do this right, and we want to create a positive experience to drive traffic and awareness to our local businesses downtown.
Very good. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, but can I just add a couple of quick comments? So I would kind of label this as a pilot project, because one of the concerns that we had was if we made this into an ordinance, then it would be setting a precedent, we weren't quite ready for that. Some of the retailers on Broadway had concerns about parking and accessibility, but the events that they're talking about are Corks and Canvas and the street fair, things like that. And so we want, basically what the DCP wants is to have it benefit those different restaurants and bars and things like that. And so by making it, I know they would rather have it be a permanent, but by having it be kind of a pilot project, at the end of this year, we can review and see if there's issues that we need to change, if there's modifications, without having it be an ordinance at this time. So that's why I support it the way it was. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second. And then a
Further
comment.
discussion, Commissioner Garrick.
Nancy, can the South Fargo Community Partnership apply for this license?
Not at this time.
So
This
that-
is established for the Downtown Community Partnership and identified as that entity.
Right, so my big lead into this and supporting it in the past has been that it's not just for downtown. How easy is it to fix this ordinance to make it so more people can use it if they so choose?
That would be something that would come back to this commission for consideration.
So I've asked numerous times for this to be put in there. I support the idea, but I don't like doing things just for downtown where we want all of Fargo to have, if this is good for downtown, it's good for Fargo. And I don't like us cutting out pieces of our town and saying, you can do it, but you can't.
If I could speak just a little bit to
Chief
that.
Todd.
There are e-permits that are available anywhere in the city where you can apply for an e-permit and have a liquor license holder serve alcohol at that event. It doesn't have to be in their establishment. Now, I would say that there are some more parameters that surround those e-permits than there is in the downtown. The relaxation of being out on a public sidewalk and walking within this defined area is a little bit different from an e-permit, but the e-permit does allow for alcohol to be served in other places than liquor establishments.
Commissioner Garrick?
That's an important distinction. That's the entire point of the exercise we're going through, is that precise distinction. So I support the concept, but I don't support this law because it doesn't do the whole thing. It separates our town.
This would be considered a pilot. We see how it works, Nancy, and if it worked well, you could do it other places. Is that correct?
I would agree that this is set up for the DCP, but that doesn't mean that another entity could not ask for a permit to be issued in their name. It would just require approval by this commission to do that,
Okay.
as
Any-
we're moving forward with this approval. I just wanted to add one comment. What is presented to you now is a draft of that ordinance. Eric and I are still working on the particular terms that will come back to you for receive and file and first reading at the next meeting. We wanted to make you aware of the terms, and because there are some time restrictions that are placed in this ordinance, right now it's got a 45-day lead time so that there can be the application process for e-permit holders to participate. And of course, there's the ordering of supplies and notification of the police. All of that has been done for the street fair event, and so that's why we're presenting to you now so that there's some certainty in ordering. We recognize that until actually approved, it's still pending, but we wanted to have a better sense of this commission's consideration.
Very good. Any other discussion?
Nancy just hit my question.
Commissioner Grinberg?
Seems like we're the process here, and then we have the street fair coming, so, that was one of the impetuses for the request, so we can make presuming we vote yes, or there's a majority that vote yes, we'll meet the street fair as one example.
That is correct. The street fair event is July 19th to the 21st.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcord.
Aye.
Garrick.
No.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Thank you very much. Travis, hope you can get to where we had to go. We've been looking forward to this. Kara Glow is going to come up, and we have the Fargo Youth Initiative, and they have a little extra energy, so it should be fun, eh?
In 2012, the Fargo City Commission voted to create a youth advisory commission called the Fargo Youth Initiative, or FYI. The mission of FYI is to unite and empower the voice of youth in Fargo through direct action and teamwork. Since its inception, a great group of smart, caring, and committed young leaders representing grades 9th through 12th from public and private schools in Fargo have met regularly to discuss opportunities and issues facing young people in our community. A number of FYI members are here tonight and are looking forward to sharing their ideas and progress with you. Thank you for your work to include the young voices in the public process in Fargo.
So I guess we can start by introducing ourselves. My name is Martha. I'm a junior at Fargo North High School.
I'm Nitty. I'm a senior at Fargo Davies High School.
I'm Sage. I'm also a senior at Davies.
I'm Tate. I'm a junior at Fargo North.
Ed Shannon. I'm a junior at Davies. So I think I'm first. So FYI is a board of 18. It got cut off. Oh shoot. Okay. We are from a Fargo, a North, Fargo, a Davies, and Fargo South. And we meet by a weekly, and we have one main thing that we do per year, and Tate will take it from here.
Yeah. So Impact Fargo is one of the main events we put on. This has been a thing since 2016. In 2016, it was a lot smaller. Emma McIntyre was the main proponent of it. She was kind of promoting this idea in her senior year. We finally did it. It was at the Fargo Theater, and it had 3 speakers and around 50 students. The next year, in 2017, it was at NDSU, and we doubled our our attendance, and we had 4 speakers there. This year, we were at the Sanctuary in 4th Street. Our theme was Further Your Impact. We had 4 speakers, and we had a power of hour similar to the past 2 years.
So since our theme this year was Further Your Impact, we tried to choose speakers that would really embody that. So we chose speakers from Fargo, and they told their stories and how they've impacted Fargo. Our first speakers were Brittany Engebretson and Janelle Regenball from Youth Court, and they talked about the difference between being a bystander and being an upstander, so taking action in situations. And they also talked about Youth Court, what it is, where they were providing alternatives for youth that would otherwise be faced with other trials. And then our second speaker was Annie Wood. She was a program director at Emerging Prairie in its first year here, and she talked about taking action and doing what you want to do. So she had an interactive activity where she split everybody into groups where they talked about what they want to do in Fargo, how they would do it, and the steps to go about creating a change. And then after lunch, we had Makai Selekwa, who created Weblin, which won the Young Entrepreneur Academy grant in 2016. He is a college student who created his own app, and he was talking about the path that he got there, starting this up in high school, and the steps that he took to establish his name and his business. And then our final speaker was Joe Burgum, who helped create the Red River Market and Folkways, and he talked about how you can create events in Fargo and spread the awareness so that everybody can do what they want to do and have a voice in Fargo.
So right in between Impact Fargo, we had this thing called Power Half Hour. Students were split into groups, which were led by FYI members, and we answered questions as a group, including, what do you like most about the city of Fargo? How can Fargo be improved? What's your favorite event that happens in Fargo? How has Fargo impacted you? And as of now, can you picture yourself living in Fargo after college? So we're going to share some of the answers here. A lot of people had a lot that they said on what they liked about the city of Fargo. They liked the events downtown. They liked the concerts, especially how we're having more and more as time progresses. They like the sporting events, and especially they like the culture here, how everyone's really nice, everyone's very warm, and there's lots of opportunities for personal growth, and everyone's on board with new ideas here. But they did think that Fargo can be improved in numerous ways, such as more hangout areas for kids and teens, especially downtown. One thing that every single student really wanted was a drive-in movie theater. So we have people wanting to start that within the next few years, and I think that's something that we're going to look into. We want better advertising for community activities, especially as FYI, as we met with people from different parts of the community through our lunch meetings, we realized that we don't hear about a lot about community activities. So we talked about that. More concerts, art fairs, showcases, and encouraging people to recycle more. People also liked a lot of specific events here in Fargo, such as the Street Fair, Streets Alive, the Fargo Marathon, and TEDx. They thought that Fargo impacted them in numerous ways that'll shape them as they go on into the future, such as their accent, getting a good education in the Fargo public school system, and especially the small town feel except in a bigger city, so they kind of get the best of both worlds. Finally, we asked students if they could picture themselves living in Fargo after college. It was split 50-50 on yeses and nos. People mainly said that they'd want to go to college either at UND or NDSU or even out of state, but then come back to start a family in Fargo because it's such a warm environment. And then a few people said no because they want a new culture, new experience. But yeah, it was pretty 50-50.
So this year, we've mainly focused on starting a program of lunch meetings where we meet with city officials once a month for meetings at the Fargo Main Library, and then Impact Fargo 2018. Next year, we're hoping to branch out a little more, and we have some goals for how we can improve FYI and make more of an impact in the city. So we're going to strive for more equal representation between the schools. So this year, while we did have a few South members, it was predominantly Davies and North members, and we'd like to have equal representation of Fargo schools, and then try to look into getting private schools involved. We took some of the ideas from the Power Half Hours that Nadine was talking about, and it's crazy how many students truly want a drive-in movie theater, which wasn't something that I even thought about, but it's almost every student in Fargo, that's something that they really want for some reason. So we're looking into a way to create more events and more spaces that youth can enjoy and can ways for them to get involved in the city. So we're taking some of the ideas that we got from the Power Up Hour and trying to implement those. But another function of FYI, which Ed touched on at the beginning of the presentation, is we'd like to increase our collaboration with you and with other city officials. We serve as an advisory board, so we'd like to, we're always open to provide feedback, to get our opinion. With our new lunch meetings, like I talked about earlier, we've had more involvement with city officials, and we've heard more about the different boards and different parts of government, but we'd love to give you feedback because as the Fargo Youth Initiative, we represent generally what the youth in Fargo want and what they'd like to see improved. And we're always open to provide suggestions or to help you in any way. We can be contacted at, I think, fargoyouthinitiative@gmail.com or through Kara or Brandy Ani. And yeah, we're always open for providing feedback, and we'd love to increase that next year. Do you have any questions?
Well, Bruce Scrub is an expert on drive-in theaters. He's from Tioga. He's just sitting behind you, so you could ask him anytime about that. Interesting enough, we're going to have some event centers downtown, and we may have movies on a building type thing. We may have a modified drive-in theater, and when we have the plaza from City Hall done, that's also been thought about, is having some events like that so people could gather together. Of course, the favorite movie everybody likes to watch is Fargo, but we might want to have some different ones you guys might suggest. What I'd suggest is probably with each of the commissioners sometime in your times of having meetings, have them come forward and talk, and then maybe ask for suggestions from them, or they could get involved. I like your report. It's a 50-50 chance I have. I got to try to get people to be more 60-40 or 70-30. They want to stay here. So you give us a challenge. Commissioner Pipcorn.
Mr. Chairman, so the one thing you talked about, the art show, and the one thing, so you should meet with the art commission, and I don't know, have you had a chance to do that? Or so to me, that would be a good thing. Either have you meet with them, or you should come to an art commission meeting and give you your report on what you find, because I think that would be a great place to start. Go ahead.
We will go to them actually tomorrow, so I mean, we'll
Awesome.
Yeah,
have a chance.
we have a lunch meeting tomorrow set up. So
There you
we'll
go.
be able to-
So, but the one thing I would say is, if you would let us know when you meet, and then like each commissioner, or however you want to set it up, one of us, we'd be happy to attend if you just let us know when it is, and we could kind of have one at a time, or however you want to do it, but I think that'd be great.
Just want to clarify, if we are having a meeting at Plains Art Museum tomorrow, but we will certainly work on scheduling something with the Art Commission.
But, Mr. Chairman, can I just follow up? But the Art Commission, they meet once a month, and so I think it would be a great experience for you guys to come and meet with them and give your perspective too, so thanks.
Commissioner Strand, no comment?
I don't. I would like to commend Kara Glow for her significant leadership. Best I can tell, the activities this year have really stepped up a lot, and that's all good. And, you know, I'm okay to hear that 50-50 want to stay here. It wasn't that many years ago that most kids wanted to leave North Dakota, so we've really improved that nicely, and we appreciate your advocacy.
Very good. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you very much. Now, you can be excused from the meeting if you want. We're going to talk a lot of different things, but it's going to be maybe a long evening if you stay about. We'll move on to update on Plastic Bag Task Force, explanation by Fargo Moorhead Plastic Bag Task Force Coordinator Laura Weisberg.
So, hello, Fargo City Commissioners. My name is Laura Westberg. I work for the Clay County Solid Waste Department, and I'm the current coordinator of the Fargo Moorhead Plastic Bag Task Force. So I'm just going to start out with some background information and show you a video that the task force actually just made.
On average, a Fargo Moorhead grocery store goes through about 52,400 pounds of plastic bags per year. That's the same as 13 Ford F-150s. Most plastic bags are only used for about 12 minutes. A typical household will use 500 to 1,000 bags every year. Plastic is the most common bag that people receive in stores. These often pile up. Minnesotans throw away 87,000 tons of plastic bags every year. Despite the landfill being the planned destination of these plastic bags, many will escape as they are light and easily transported by the wind. Once this plastic bag has escaped the landfill, it is free to pollute whatever environment it chooses. Plastic doesn't truly decompose. It simply breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces, resulting in more pollution that's harder to clean up. Less than 5% of plastic bags are recycled in the U.S. It doesn't have to be this way. Together, we could create change by switching to reusable bags and recycling the plastic bags that we do use.
Is plastic okay?
Actually, I brought my own. All right. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about the impacts that plastic bags have on a global and local environment. So one really big impact is on the marine environment. So I'm sure we've all heard of Garbage Island. And it's a common misconception that in the middle of the ocean, there's this island literally made out of trash. But it's more like there's this plastic pieces and other trash just like floating around in this sort of densely packed area. This occurs because there's like currents, gyres, circular currents, just causing it to collect in this area. So obviously that's not good. Another negative impact is marine animals. It's been reported that sea turtles often are found eating plastic bags. They often misidentify them as jellyfish. And once they've consumed plastic bags, they usually can't digest any other food normally. So they usually die from starvation. And something like that actually happened in our local area. So one local farmer last year had a cow die after eating one plastic bag. One plastic bag caused this cow to die. And then obviously we've always seen plastic bags being stuck in trees and all over empty fields, washing into the river. Another impact that a lot of people don't know about is what they do to recycling facilities. So a lot of people put their recycling into plastic bags and then put it in their bin. This is really bad because plastic bags can get stuck in machinery, and if enough bags get stuck, they actually have to shut down the plant and manually take out the bags, which is not only time-consuming, but actually can be dangerous for the employees involved. For those reasons, we obviously need to deal with the issue of plastic bags. Just a little history of the Plastic Bag Task Force. So the issue has been talked about for the last couple of years, and just 2 years ago, Clay County started contacting some local officials as well as organizations and residents to see if they'd be interested in being part of a solution. So the first meeting of the task force was March 2017. I'm just going to acknowledge some of our members because they are the most important part of the task force. So we have members from both sides of the river, and we have involved a lot of key stakeholders, such as the North Dakota Grocers Association. Their president, John Deisty, is here. And if members are here, I'd like them to either stand or wave, just to acknowledge them. We also have river keepers involved. We have Christine Holland, and we have the Home Builders Association. Bryce Johnson is a part of our task force. Members of the solid waste community, such as Waste Management, Minn Kota. We have Jen Pickett and Terry Ludlam from the city of Fargo. And we have Shannon Thompson from Clay County and Kirk Rosenberger from Clay County. Local residents are also key members to our organization, particularly one resident, Susie Eckberg. She has been a huge help. She has made literally hundreds of reusable bags, including the ones I handed out to all of you. It's incredible. Another resident is Andrea Chechen. Okay, great. As well as local officials, for example, John Strand, and we also have Sarah Watson-Curry from the Moorhead City Council involved. So we started as a conversation about plastic bags. So we're not talking about a ban, but just how can we address this issue? So we want to reduce the amount of plastic bags that are being used in our area while increasing the amount that are being recycled, and increasing public awareness about the issues surrounding plastic bags. So some of the things that we've done is we've collected data to better understand the issues in our area. So we've contacted grocery stores to see how many bags they're using annually, and we've had waste sorts to see if the public knows about plastic bag recycling. Additionally, we've worked to increase public awareness on these issues by producing residential guides and making sure that the City of Fargo and the City of Moorhead have accurate information about what plastic can be recycled and where it can be recycled. Additionally, we've encouraged schools to participate in plastic bag recycling competitions. One particular school, Minnesota State University, had a 6-month competition where they collected 574 pounds of plastic bags and film. And because of that, they actually won a bench. We're hoping that they can kind of stand as a leader for other schools in our community. Additionally, we want to provide alternative options for plastic bags, and we've started this boomerang bag program, which essentially what it is we're providing stores with free reusable bags, just like the t-shirt totes that I handed out to you. So we give them a container and we give them about 50 reusable bags, and then if they ever need more, they can just call us and we'll bring out more. So if someone forgets the reusable bag, they can always take one. And some things that we hope to do in the future is just to continue to inform the public. We have all this information now, and how do we get it out there? Well, we've already put it on the websites, so we just hope to continue to teach people about plastic bag recycling. Additionally, we want to just have people understand the impacts of using all these plastic bags. Another issue that we've come across is that a lot of people have reusable bags, but they don't necessarily use them. Often they're forgot in their car or at home. I'm sure we've all done it. And one way to do that is just provide them with a reminder, maybe a sticker in their car or a bracelet. Another thing that we'd like to do is just continue with our boomerang bag program by providing more stores with these reusable bags. One upcoming event that we have that I want to talk about is a day without plastic bags, which will be on June 5th, which is World Environment Day. We're actually proposing a joint proclamation between Fargo and Moorhead, possibly Dilworth and West Fargo as well. I've handed you all copies, and I really hope that you consider signing them, and fingers crossed you do that. Thank you so much for your time and letting me speak, and I just want to thank you, yeah. Any questions?
Thank you, very good. Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor, and Laura, thank you so much. Folks might remember a few years back I advanced the conversation about banning plastic bags. There are other cities around the world and country that have done that, and some instances where states have even since then preempted the city's abilities to do things like that. Long story short, it didn't take us long to realize here locally, especially when I have banter with Commissioner Gehrig, that maybe a discussion about a ban isn't where you start at all. And it wouldn't be very much received very well by the industry, by the community. And we understand all that. So where we've gone as a community, a broader community, is to have the conversation, step up our awareness, educate folks more, instill the higher value of each of us every day, every moment, not contributing to the problems to the environment as we can so easily do with plastic bags. And it's just, I think the result is a little more, maybe a lot more incremental, but maybe a lot more sustainable and long-term. The Grocers Association, the River Keepers, Councilwoman Sarah Watson-Curry, Clay County Commissioner Kevin Campbell, Commissioner Gehrig and myself and all of the citizens who've really participated. This is a good way to do things and for the greater public good. So thank you. Please take our thanks back to your folks who sponsored you as an intern and gave you the permission to work with all of us. And I look forward to all of us every year having better reports each time we go at this topic.
Thank you, Laura. We'll go to public hearings. I'm not sure if Steve Bragdon is Kent or is the chief going to explain? Chief is? Okay. Transfer of a Class FA alcoholic beverage license from Anderson Franchise Investment, doing business as Perla's Fresh Mexican, to North Star Hospitality, LLC, doing business as 47 Degrees North at 42nd 81 45th Street South, continued from the 4/23/18 regular agenda. Chief Dave Todd to explain.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, as you can see, I'm not Steve Sprague, but I'll do my best to fill his shoes here. We did an application review, this pertinent city departments, and we did the background and credit check. We did have a slight delay in that we carried this over to this next meeting because we had one little issue to work out with the applicant that got worked out to our satisfaction. So we voted on recommending to approve this through liquor control to the City Commission.
Is there anyone present who wishes to address the City Commission regarding this transfer? Is there anybody who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Pepcorn and Commissioner Grinberg. Commissioner Gehrig.
Yeah, so I think it was a 4-to-1 vote. The reason that I voted against it was because I don't support transferring licenses that are uncapped. The reason being is we're creating a commodity out of this. So someone could sell this license for whatever amount they want and help pay for another license they want to buy or so forth. So there's no reason to do it, and we're actually foregoing tax dollars being collected by allowing transfers instead of returning that license back to the city and issuing it back out.
Any other comment? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Gehrig.
No.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item B, application of a Class F alcoholic beverage license from Drunken Noodle, doing business as Wasabi Poke Bowl at 560 2nd Avenue North. Chief Todd to explain as well.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, the difference between this and a FA license is it authorizes sale of on-sale liquor to a table or booth without the physical bar in the establishment. We did an application review with the pertinent departments, background and credit check, everything was fine. Recommendation from Liquor Control was to approve.
Is anyone present who wishes to speak to this Class F alcoholic beverage license? Is there anybody who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Strand, Grinberg. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand.
Yes.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Gehrig.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item C, transfer of FA alcoholic beverage license from Mom's Kitchen Incorporated, doing business as Alligator's Mom's Kitchen, to 1631 Hospitality LLC, doing business as Black Sheep Grill and Tavern at 635 2nd Avenue North. Chief Todd to explain.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, again, application review by the pertinent city departments involved in the review process on background and credit check were fine. Recommendation from Liquor Control was to approve.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Pepcorn, is there a second?
Second.
Grinberg? Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Gehrig.
No.
Mahoney.
Aye. Now we're going to switch up to Dan Eberhardt, I think, right? Special assessment list for the main water replacement, forest main construction, street construction improvement district, BR 16B, continued from 10/9/17 and from the 10/23 regular meeting. This was a special assessment that we had up to do, and the commissioners had informed us at that time to stop and re-look at things. At that time, we had not fully decided what specials would be, And since there's on the agenda an item here that may change this, this is going to be continued to our June 18th meeting. And at that time, we may have a new assessment to them. The commission did have a meeting about just regular special assessments prior to this, but we had not gotten to the second meeting with the neighbors and the second meeting with the commission to talk about rehab specials. So we would want to continue it because Dan Everhart will have to reassess the assessments if we come up with a new plan tonight. So what I need from the commissioners is a motion to continue it until 5:15 on Monday, June 18th, 2018.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Gehrig.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. And then this is the first reading of the ordinance amending section 251509-2 of Article 2515 of Chapter 25 of the Fargo Municipal Code relating to alcoholic beverages. Nancy Morris to explain. I got it right this time. I was making the chief do all your work. Come on.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was explaining or if the chief was explaining. No, this ordinance was before you at the last meeting on receive and file. It simply removes some of the language from the ordinance that required a corroborating witness in order to determine whether or not an establishment had engaged in over-serving.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions on this ordinance? This is receive and file at this time. Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just
Excuse me,
curious.
no, it is first reading.
First reading,
Receive
I'm
and
sorry.
file was at the last meeting.
One of the points that was raised in the last discussion was if we have a sense of what the industry's thoughts are. I don't know about other commissioners. I haven't heard from anybody.
No.
And I don't know of anybody.
There's some in the room if you'd like Rick to talk a bit, or?
Well,
And this has been before the Liquor Control Board on a couple of instances, and those notices do go to all of the license holders, so they are aware of the change, and I have not received any response either.
that's what I wanted to know.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote?
We have to have a motion.
Oh,
and a
can I have a
second.
motion? I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion.
Pipcorn, and is there a second?
Second.
Eric? Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll just add real quickly. So John, what we did was we did this intentionally so people had the opportunity to know what was going on, and if they wanted to comment, they could, either at Liquor Control or here. So that was how it went.
And there's some owners here today, John, that they're not asking to speak, just so you know. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Gehrig.
Yes.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 44, Commissioner Gehrig would like to discuss the hiring of a consultant to look at the city's liquor license structure and capping policy.
Thanks, Mayor. We've had a lot of discussion about liquor licenses in the city of Fargo. Cowboy Jacks was a big issue, but that's not the only issue that's out there. It seemed to highlight something that was festering underneath the surface. So the questions that I've gotten recently, I'm sure the other commissioners have received as well, are about capping, locations, density, and just our general liquor license structure in general and how complex it is. There are cities of our size that do things differently. I would like to at least ask the question, if there's someone out there that could perhaps give us a better way forward. This is not a request to hire anybody. This is simply a request to put out a request for proposals for people to come in, tell us what they can do for us. If we don't like the proposal, we don't have to take it. So I'll make a motion, the recommended motion.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing no second, and just so the public knows, I'm aware, Chief Todd may comment on this, is the Liquor Control Board did have a subcommittee that looked at a variety of changes for over 6 months. Is that correct? And tried to look at a variety of things that many of the public had brought to you. And were there some changes that came out of that or not?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, we did have a subcommittee, was it a year and a half ago, probably? And it consisted of course, Liquor Control Board members, the members from the industry and then public that was interested in that particular issue. We did propose some changes regarding penalty structure. Those are still sitting out there. We'd made some changes about requirements for attending the annual meeting, which we just had, and just a added thing onto that, the annual meeting we just had, we spoke about the ordinance you just previously discussed in depth too. We gave people the opportunity to ask questions, but as far as there didn't seem to be a real drive to make substantive changes to liquor licenses or the way they're structured.
And then didn't you talk this consultant issue last meeting, and it was not recommended by your board to proceed with that?
It died for lack of a second at our Liquor Control Board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Garrick?
Yeah, so to that point, we've had actually numerous small groups that have come together. When I became commissioner, I asked for that to be done. I actually headed up that task force. Nothing substantive in the areas of capping, location, density, or general license structure. They were discussed, but nothing ever happened. And I'm aware that there was small groups before that. So people of Fargo have spoken up pretty loud. There was pretty tremendous outpouring of support for some sort of changes out there. So I just hope people realize that the question was out there, it was asked to do this, and nothing happened.
Mayor.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you. Commissioner Gary, I'd like to acknowledge you for bringing these topics forward. I'm just not sure I'm on the same page about how to do it. And I do hear from folks out in the community, they have concerns about the number of bars and the location of bars and the density of bars. I think we need to vet that topic very well locally and find out more what the folks want and how they want it and what capacity. And there's lots of models out there about how you manage density of licenses and bars and load, how many people are there. So there are things for us to do. I would prefer we start at our home front with the local folks who've spoken up, the neighborhood association from downtown, and others who have concerns. We hear them out. We get their best thinking. We work with our own folks about what we can do within the parameters of our policy, and if we need to, then we can either go forward with outside or inside consultants locally. But so I acknowledge you bringing this forward. I'm just not process-wise exactly on the same page right now.
Okay. Item 45, recommendations for my appointment to the Native American Commission. You have my recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And John, you've been moving this forward, the Native American Commission. You've got some good members.
You know, I have to say we're really, with a lot of our boards and commissions, we're getting a nice selection of applicants. And it helps with Greg and our team putting out the word to the community that we have openings and that we're looking for folks. But, you know, it's great when you have so many good options that you have to really whittle it down to who can we do now and why. And the candidates we have moving forward on the Native American Commission now are terrific candidates, and there's others still in the wings for the future. The Native American Commission has lots to do, and there are lots of relevant issues today. So it's important we have the right people there working on behalf of the general public, and in that instance also for the Native American community.
Very good. Roll call vote.
Strand.
Yes.
Grinberg.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Garrick.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 46, consider proposed second amendment to the MOU between the City of Oxbow and the Metro Flood Diversion Board of Authority, Cass County Joint Water Resource District, Cass County, and the City of Fargo. This has been something that we've been working on for the last 6 months, and it kind of came from Finance Committee to a resolution of many issues that sat there. Mike Rellinger will explain.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Good evening. The Diversion Authority Finance Committee and the Diversion Board of Authority approved this particular Oxbow MOU amendment on April 25th and on May 3rd, respectively. The North Dakota member entities are required to come back and also consent to the changes in the Oxbow MOU. And so that's the reason that this is before the Commission this evening. The Cass County Joint Board and Cass County both approved this matter. Actually, Cass County just approving this afternoon at their board meeting. So there's actually 2 documents that are under consideration that Eric helped us draft. The assignment agreement is actually between the Oxbow Golf and Country Club, the Joint Board, and the City of Oxbow. We are not a party to that, nor is Cass County. But the agreement that is in front of the commission tonight is the second amendment to the MOU, which is between the City of Oxbow, the Diversion Authority, and again, the North Dakota member entities, Cass County, City of Fargo, and the Joint Board also being asked to consent to that. So some of the goals and objectives as we talked to the Diversion Authority Finance Committee over the last several months has been to modify the sales procedure so as to reassign risk and reassign cost back to the Oxbow Golf and Country Club and to the City of Oxbow, and then also allow the City of Oxbow to take on a more direct role in marketing and managing their lot sales process. In total, 33 residential single-family lots remain in Oxbow to be sold. And this, again, will allow for them to take a more direct management role with the lot sales, as well as take the control of the weed and mowing maintenance responsibilities for these lots. At the same time, our exchange is that then we are going to be removed from future golf course change orders in exchange for this MOU amendment change. We also are trying to address the city park relocation within this MOU amendment. There were several numbers that were floating around on that particular bit of public infrastructure, and actually this agreement will cap us to a $200,000 total contribution for the relocation of the park, which is the responsibility of the Diversion Authority. So breaking down the financial terms, in the agreement you've seen before you in the packet is a proposal to assign the first $1 million in sales after the execution of this agreement to Oxbow or the Oxbow Job Development Authority. And then after that first $1 million in sales on the remaining 33 lots is achieved, that we would then return back to a 65-35 split where the Diversion Authority will receive 65% of the revenues. And again, in exchange for that, we're capping our obligations on the city park relocation, as well as getting out of the golf course change orders. I think that's been a real key interest on the part of our Finance Committee members of the Diversion Authority, and this will achieve that. One particular change that did occur between the Finance Committee and the Diversion Board on May 3 was that at the request of the authority, and in particular the Cass County members of the Diversion Authority, we are reserving some lots for new staging area residents. These are people that are impacted in the new Plan B alignment that aren't impacted today, to give them an opportunity to relocate into Oxbow should that be their desire. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the assignment agreement, a relatively straightforward instrument, also has been approved by the Joint Board and the City of Oxbow. We are not a party to that, not being asked to approve that this evening. But I just also wanted to, by way of illustration, just show too, we spent a lot of time with Mike Montplaisir, Kent Costin, just doing some financial modeling and some analysis over the last several months, just to try and make sure that our revenue assumptions were valid if we were to amend the MOU. Do we, the Diversion Authority and the North Dakota member entities, get ahead on the arrangement? And the answer is that yes, we do. We've estimated that in total our cost savings would be just over $62,000. And again, the future undetermined change orders on the golf course that would become the responsibility of the Diversion Authority otherwise, as well as the park relocation, again, expressly limited to $200,000 in revenue sharing and cost sharing. So we wanted to just highlight a few of those things. Obviously, work will continue in the community after the golf course is completely done. That will be Diversion Authority responsibility in the out years of 19, 20, and 21. But again, this matter speaks directly to the lot sales, the park relocation, and golf course change orders.
Any questions? Mike?
I would just add, as Chair of the Finance Committee, just commend Mike and Kent and Mr. Montplaisir as well, their expertise to guide us through this. The check and balance system worked during the Diversion Authority. Was tabled to go back to make sure there were lots preserved for people displaced by the ultimate diversion project. So at the end of the day, we had a great product. Mike is very thorough, as we know, and I think it's a positive step forward that Oxbow can take care of their own business and we start focusing on diversion and get out of the golf course business. That ought to be something that makes us all happy, unless you can hit a tee shot 350 yards.
You want to make a motion then?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. And I don't know if it matters much if you live in and around Fargo or upstream, but just the word Oxbow triggers a response from a lot of folks. And I think that's a reality we all deal with. The project that went from 60-some million to 120-some million seems to be out of control. Now, the part of this memorandum of understanding that I really appreciate sincerely is if we can put a cap on that. If apparently, that's needed, and I think the public thinks that's needed. If we can limit the change orders and limit the impact to the community through park relocation. I do have some concerns and questions about the 33 lots, up to 10 of them saved for potential relocations of homes that might be especially impacted if the Plan B diversion proposal gets permitted. And then there's another, so that's, out of those 33 homes, the first $1 million would go to Oxbow. Now, on face value, at first blush, to me, that would look like we're just handing Oxbow another $650,000, when the rate that we're at now is 65% diversion authority, 35% Oxbow. If in the end it truly limits this hemorrhaging, I'm for it. And I hope we remind ourselves that's what we're intending to do here, because the real issue is protecting Fargo internally. And I think that's another shared value. So I will, with my concerns and my hesitations and reservations about Oxbow on so many fronts over the years, I will support this with the desire to truly limit the exposure to Fargo and Fargo residents and the diversion authority going forward.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Grinberg?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 47, recommendation for interim infrastructure funding policy. Commissioner Grinberg, to start this out. We had talked about this a little bit with that other motion prior to this, and I had talked about moving this up sooner, but in light of the fact Broadway's come up, we have to address this as we go forward to do proper assessments. Commissioner Grinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I am going to ask Brenda Derrig to come up and give a perspective. Before I do that, just to set the context, at least from some background, your note earlier about the North Broadway project. And, from a standpoint of when we talked last week to put this on the agenda, certainly to make it clear that, we're right-sizing, if you will, the cost to residents with their specials. And in my case, I had a couple extended conversations with a lady that owns a home in the Lindenwood area, and Brenda's staff and engineering helped me through with some facts. And her point to me was, I like the idea we're going to get new streets and water and sewer, but when I compare my estimated cost to an area of town that was completed not too far away, why the big difference? And so I was able to provide her some of the background that engineering has provided. But I don't, I won't say that everybody thinks that way, but I do believe that there's a lot of Fargo residents who appreciate, the new infrastructure when we go about modernizing established parts of town. And there's a big difference between the work that's gone on for almost well over 2 decades with the voters passing sales tax to modernize our infrastructure, and then there's a new development, which is a different topic, so to speak, as far as the financing goes. But it's important that we, be prudent in our approach. And so, when we talked, it made sense tonight to move forward with this, with the, revert back to the 2013 policy of 70% funded by sales tax, that I think will address this woman's concern that we talked about. In my 2 years on the commission, there's been, unique situations that have arose with special assessments. Some of that's largely dictated by front footage, South Fargo, for example, the North Broadway project, street lights out in the Woodhaven area. There was a lot of unrest with the cost of street lights, and we're assessing, I believe, 100% of those now in an area. And as I said to the media on Friday when I got a call to, we're doing a brief snippet on tonight's meeting, ended up on the front page of the Sunday paper. I said, in my mind, based on what we've talked about, and Mr. Grubb and I have had conversations that stem back a couple months, it's time to bring this forward now. And certainly the political rhetoric on special assessments during this campaign has also brought this to a much higher state of, people watching what we're doing and, misinformation being shared and this and that. And so I think it was prudent that we brought this forward tonight, so to speak, because the industry is in town here as well. The home builders have 1,000 members, and what we do and how we act and what decisions we make have an impact on Fargo. And so I share that as a backdrop to this topic and why the timing of this. I think it's important on those two fronts. So I think as I've read through the minutes of 2013 and 2015, I think it was important that we have an explanation as to why those changes were made from the 13 policy to the 15 policy, and then tonight's proposal to go back to the 13 policy.
Brenda Derrick?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I do honestly want to thank you for the opportunity to come up and visit with you about this and to have the open conversation in regards to our infrastructure funding policy and what is the best mechanism to move forward. As we've discussed this internally and talked about, what was the pushing force for us to move forward with that, for the city engineer at that time to move forward with that request, there were really three things that rose to the top, and one was the increase in the construction costs. We're also seeing some decrease in our state funding, and then also the increase in the flood projects, so money moving towards some of our flood projects. And what I would say today is we have great streets. We're making strides for our infrastructure, replacing the older infrastructure, and we really wanted to continue having those well-designed streets. So to do that, that's where that request came for the 2015 infrastructure policy that changed it from a capped cost mostly on the water main replacement projects and the street reconstruction projects, along with the capped cost for the arterials. So then it went from, for the locals, it went to a 45-55 split, and then this year to a 50-50 split. Now, on top of going from capped cost to percentages, we also split out more categories, which have been very impactful with those special assessments. So items like traffic signals that were included in your capped cost for the street reconstruction, now we're separated and added as an additional cost. We do understand that the reverting back to the 2013, that would decrease the monies that we would have within engineering to do our projects. So there would be project cuts to support that 2013 funding policy if the commissioners would so choose to go back to it. Currently, immediately, we wouldn't see impacts, but as we could maybe then, massage that policy and adjust it maybe more acceptable to everyone, then we could help with the future deterioration of that infrastructure. So in that 2015, what was being looked at is the miles of roads we have and the infrastructure, and how do we keep the quality of those roads up. And so an immediate going back to that would cause us to reduce those project loads today, with the hope that maybe we can find a ground where everyone would be acceptable. With that, I think the only thing I would like to kind of close with is just our policy for spreading the benefit has never changed. It's just the funding associated with those benefits. So how do we want to address that funding? So as that funding gets reduced, then we need to look at actually reducing the costs.
So one of the intents is to have a committee form after elections in July, basically, and visit with any other changes we should make. I think engineering's been massages for the last 6 months, and the best effect we could do right now is make an interim step. But my assumption is arterials you're going to have to address in some manner. And actually, North Broadway was the perfect storm. It was an arterial, it was local, it was water, sewer, it was everything on once. And it just, without the caps, went too high. I think the commissioners in 15 saw changes of 10 to 15% on specials, but it didn't take into account all the other changes. Now that we've seen this, just as the commission said in October, let's pause and relook at that. The end point of that is an interim step would be go back to the 13 policy, and then we'll reassess our CIP. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Questions for the commissioner? Commissioner Pepper?
Mr. Chairman, so the way I look at it is this is the first step of making more changes to the special assessments. The next step is to have staff, not just engineering, but finance and everybody look at the other options. And one of the things is the arterials, especially in North Fargo, they're much closer together. And so that's what's causing part of this issue. And I think the arterial issue, the staff, everybody is already aware of that. We need to figure out a way. In South Fargo, it's not nearly as impactful as it is in North Fargo. And so that's one of the key drivers. And I think the majority of residents in Fargo are not uncomfortable with paying specials, but what happened like on Broadway, where if you went one block over, they were paying 3 times more than their neighbors. And I think that was and it was because it was an arterial. And I think that was the thing that has kind of driven this. And so I think this is the first step, and I think it'll be an ongoing thing. Thank you.
Mr. Gehrig?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Dave said there. I agree with him that this is the first step, and I certainly hope it doesn't end here. It shouldn't. People have spoken up pretty loud and clear about this. I just have a really hard time hearing that we don't have enough money in the Special Assessment Fund when we divert $7 million in 5 years out of that fund. People pay their special assessments, do not think that it's going to build a bike lane in South Fargo or whatever else. They think it's going to be for their project. We talk about benefit all the time. This special assessment is here to benefit you. Please pay it. And then we learned that $1.5 million per year is being moved out of that account. We knew that there was a contingency of 1% on top. We were always told that that was for if someone didn't pay, someone defaulted, the airport can't pay that special assessment. We'll use that 1% to cover that. Every public statement that's ever been given has been to that regard. And the mayor had an interview this month, and when asked if special assessments go to the general fund, the first word out of his mouth was no, and then a lot of explaining, and then the last words were yes, we do. That's doublespeak. Orwell knows well about that, okay? So we're trying to confuse people, and I don't appreciate it, and I think people of Fargo are finally sick of it. So while this is a good step in the right direction, I certainly think that people are ready for this to end completely, and I think that's the best thing for the people of Fargo. Even under this policy, you can be assessed out of your home, okay? And with the 2013 policy, we need clarification. Are we going back to the 1% rate or 1.5%? I believe in 2013 it was 1.5% on top.
No, it's not. It's 1%.
Okay, we'll stay at 1%.
2007, it went to 1%.
Are the engineering fees going to be capped at 30%? Engineering and admin fees.
I don't believe in the policy. There's a cap. Engineering, you want to come up? Is there a
Or
cap?
Bruce or whoever.
There's no cap on engineering fees. Engineering fees are 11%. Administrative fees are 6%.
Always?
Yes.
Okay. I think it would do well for the people of Fargo if we reduce the interest rate to 0.5% in the interim. The 1% is obviously too much. We're taking money out of that account every day because we're making money off of it.
So first of all, to clarify a variety of things on a talk show host, you ask questions quickly. Our special assessment money that people are assessed with a 1% fee is placed in that account. We as a city cannot touch that till 25 years goes past. The end of the special assessment, then there is money that is available for the city by state law that can go to the general fund. We used approximately 1.4 that goes back to the general fund, and we utilize that to keep taxes down. It's very hard to take that special assessment and give it back to homeowners that have moved, gone on, done other things in their life, so the state recognizes that. We have a major issue in the community. We have a flood diversion that's going in. There is a percentage of people that could go and default during a flood. So your 1% fee helps guarantee we make the payments. So if you happen to be somebody who pay your specials early, the city has to still guarantee the rate of the return to the bondholder. So if the bond goes out for, let's say, 3.5 and there's a 1% charge, the bondholders are expecting to get their 3.5. If people pay prior to that bond coming full fruition, we have to make up the difference. In addition to that, we have deferments. Very sound financial policy. Ken can speak to it if you'd like. The reality is that this is being a much ado about nothing because it's a 1% service charge on that. We get very low rates for our consumers, and it's much better than they'd have to go to the bank if they had to get it on their own. This is 30 or 40 years of financial policy that we have done. We have not been dishonest with the public. They're very aware of this. And I would remind you, Mr. Gehring, that when you look at the motion that comes with specials, it clearly says at the top this will include a 1% fee. When the diversion is over, we might well consider going to 0.5%, but I feel the risk is too high right now for us to do this at this time. I think the present idea Commissioner Grinberg's putting forth is a good, sound idea to do, and we can look at, with good people in the room, with experts in the room, we can look at, can we change specials? Infrastructure has to be paid for. Whether you like it or not, that's what happens. Whether you increase utilities or increase some other mode of taxes for the people, you have to figure out a fair way to do that. We have been to the Supreme Court numerous times, and every time it has affirmed that we do this fairly and we benefit the proper people. At no time has anybody on the question of benefits won in Supreme Court. I leave it to the public on this, but the reality is that we have a fair system, we have infrastructure to pay for, and we do an excellent job. Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I have lots and lots of points I'd like to make, and we could be here all night. Brenda or somebody from the city, could you define benefits for me?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Benefit, prescribed by Century Code. Benefit can be done on a front foot or a square foot or a combination of. We take a project, we'll use water main. You typically do that on a front foot basis. If you got a 50-foot lot, you're paying for 50 foot, typically both sides of the road. So benefit is how that pipe is distributed amongst that improvement district.
If I might continue, my understanding of benefits is it's supposed to be directly correlatable to the value increase of the property.
No. Benefit is to the lot regardless of the value of the property or what's on the property. When we take a district and prescribe the benefit for it, we look at an open grid. We don't know what's on it, we don't know who owns it, we don't know the cost of that lot.
Again, my understanding on a national level definition of benefits is a benefit is an increase in value to your property, and you can't assess more than that.
Correct.
So that's, I think, a topic for us to vet, is how do we define benefits and how do we apply projects to the benefits? And because there's some questions out there in the community now that there are some examples, without getting into them, where appraisers or banks and financiers are considering specials a liability and or forthcoming specials to be a potential liability against the purchase price of a house, as opposed to looking at like the value of the home or property would be increased accordingly.
It is part of the evaluation on a banking side, but on the special assessment side, it's a benefit, again, to that lot. How much does it in district have for construction costs plus our fees structure spread out amongst that district?
And I appreciate that. And I'm hearing lots of definitions. That's a topic for us, one of many topics for us to go to. Commissioner Grinberg, I have a question for you, several probably. When you say in your intended motion to rescind the 2015 infrastructure policy and to reinstate the 2013 infrastructure policy, does that mean across the boards all of the details of the 2013 policy, or is it some and not others? Because they're not the same. It's more than just the 50-50, 70-30 split.
The intent is to go back to 2013 practices.
So that leads me to the question, and of course, and is there retroactivity in your motion intention?
No.
So
well, there's two projects that were bid during that time frame, so the question, would you give them the same break?
This year.
No, 15 and 16.
That wasn't my intention of being retroactive.
Yeah, and can you tell about the two projects that were done, new policy?
The city has approved some projects that move forward, and they have been spread. I believe the intent would be to take the 13 policy, which was changed in 15 for 16 and 17. We'd look at those 16 and 17 projects that have been assessed. If they would qualify for a reduced rate, I think we would compensate.
Okay.
And once we get to that, once we get to that point and we calculate the costs differences, who pays that?
That's an administrative call.
City pays for it.
City would pay for it.
So the general public would potentially be on the hook for maybe several millions of dollars. I'm not quibbling with this, but my concern is that we know the consequences of any actions we embark upon. And I don't want any unintended consequences to surprise us.
Mr., if I may,
Commissioner Grimberg.
help me understand the additional cost of a couple million. I didn't follow the.
Okay. In your 2013 policies, for example, with replacement, rehabilitation, sanitary sewer, we would revert back from 50/50 assessment shared to $40 per frontage foot, for example. In the replacement, rehabilitation water mains, we would revert from 50/50 in the 2015 policy to 40% frontage foot caps. And same with new traffic signals, the same with traffic signals as part of a new construction. When we make this shift from shared percentages that we've anticipated already, and I'm not quibbling with it, but I want to know how we're going to quantify the financial differences and who will pay it.
Which we would with sales tax.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to know the number, what the dollars are, and vet the options of how we do that. I'm not in disagreement with this general policy approach, but I'd like to know the financial implications.
So what would happen, the city staff would take any of the changes that we do, and we'd have to figure out a financial fix for that. We may have to swap back our CIP plan. We may have to do different issues. There may be a different way of basically doing a loan from the state of North Dakota might help us. There's a variety of different financial tools we can use. And you can delay a project. So there's a variety of ways that the staff can work it out, but it's not just sales tax. So it would have to be, when you say it shifts to the public, John, yes, it does. It shifts to the city to try to figure out its resources, what it can pay. And if we can't pay, we're going to cut a project. So it's, you can't have as many projects. It's just what's going to happen. Then you have a discussion in July. Let's all talk about it and see what we're going to do as a city. So some people like the city. They like driving along the streets. They like on us to clean it is. They like our services. If you're going to pay for that, then you have to figure out how to afford that. So some institutions have an infrastructure tax called a street tax. You could do that. You could do a wheels tax. There's a variety of different ways you can look at how to fix that. The public has to weigh in and say, here's what we want. So Jim Gilmore, did you have something to say? No. So that's what we would have to do. But for now, what we would have to do is figure out, we throw it to the city, a team to figure out what we're going to do, and they will bring that back to us. Mr. Strand, are you done?
I'll alternate.
Okay, Commissioner Garrick.
Yeah, I just had one last thing. You know, it's been thrown around a couple times now that I've suggested that this is illegal. I never said it's illegal. I said the conversation we're having about the 1.5 or 1% on top, you know, clearly the people of Fargo didn't know that. There was clearly outrage when they found that out, what was being done with it, that it was being moved out. So no, I never said it was illegal, but people are clearly outraged by it. A fair system, if you've heard the conversations, if you've read the paper, if you've seen the polls on the paper, although not scientific, when 92% of people responding to a poll say that we should revamp our system, they clearly do not think it's a fair system. So this will be the impetus for some good change. I hope this is not it. In general, like John was saying, it's a step in the right direction, and we're going to have to cut some projects. But you know, people cannot be receiving a $20,000 assessment on North Broadway because they're in between two arterials. So the system has to change for sure.
Well, number one, if you do a poll and say how many of you would like to get rid of taxes, I think 90% of the room would say yes. So the reality is when you do a poll of how many you want to get rid of specials, that's one thing. The other reality is that when we talk about this in the state of Minnesota, your tax can be anywhere from 1% to 3.5% on administrative cost. In the state of North Dakota, most cities take the 1.5. We're the only city that takes 1. So every other city in the state takes 1.5 because they utilize that there in the infrastructure costs. So it's nothing that we're doing that is not illegal or not in the books of the state law. We follow state law. Do you have a motion and a second?
No, I would like to have Mr. Eberhardt and Mr. Costin at the podium. 2 questions. I don't remember. Did I? Just set the record straight.
I'd love to go first.
First question for both of you is, how many years of service do each of you have individually with the city of Fargo?
I have 30 years of service, 20 years as the director of finance.
23 years, 21 in special assessment.
So you both know finance, you both know the statutes, you both know the rules that we follow. Question for you, Dan, is, are practices any different than Grand Forks or Bismarck?
There's some differences, yes. We follow the Century Code, always have, always will. We've been challenged multiple times, all the way to the Supreme Court, and they find that we're in good standing.
And from a perspective, Sioux Falls approaches this as the same manner, if you will, but calls them impact fees to a general degree?
It's somewhat an upfront fee.
Okay. And the question, and you answered it for Kent, was we follow state law, and I'm sure Kent is going to say yes.
And
Absolutely.
Sioux Falls has a 2% sales tax that pays all their specials, so that's why they don't have impact fees.
And the mayor asked that I would comment briefly on our audit provisions. Our annual audit is conducted annually. It's required because we issue municipal securities, our bonds or debt instruments. That needs to be audited, and as well as our federal grants. That happens every year by independent CPA, and there's a two-step process. A local firm reviews all of our records in detail, including our special assessment funds and our special assessment projects. And there's an independent review of somebody outside of the region that does the quality review of the audit. And we have a longstanding record of having very clean audits, very clean financial results, and have received 20 years worth of awards from the GFOA for giving the best possible financial report to the community that we can. So we're proud of that accomplishment. We also, in addition to this, calling on our experience, I have a very competent staff. I have retained and have 4 certified public accountants on staff that have more than 10 years worth of experience that have their hand in city finance as well. So I've been very lucky and very fortunate to have such a talented finance staff. So I appreciate their
And Kent, in your budget book, do you not list the money that comes over from the specials, the 1.4 million? Is that not in the budget book?
Yes, it is. A couple of different ways I actually looked that up today. In prior disclosures, there was more detail with regard to that transfer prior to 2014. In 2014, we went to the best business practice of the Government Finance Officers Association in presenting your budget book. You'll still remember that it was all reformatted in that. But in the debt service funds, we did indicate the amounts that were being transferred out of there, and the 1.45 that was.
But the public could find it.
Yes. Page 131.
And every commissioner has the right to meet with the auditor every year. They have the opportunity to review anything that they're concerned about.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
So Brenda, I'll ask just to double check you're comfortable with the motion to rescind the 2015 infrastructure funding policy approved by the City Commission on November 23rd, 2015, and reinstate City of Fargo 2013 infrastructure funding policy originally approved by the City Commission on December 9th, 2013.
Is there a second?
Do you want me to answer it?
I'll make that motion. I don't know if there was a second.
Okay.
I'll second it.
You know, Brenda, just sure reinforce whether you have concerns with that motion, and Commissioner Strand's questions about some of the particulars. Are we, from your vantage point as engineer?
Yeah. So what I would say is, I think, obviously, I think what your motion is in the right direction to work forward from. I think the way it was split out with the 2015, that obviously had some large financial impacts that we need to be reevaluating, and how do we move those forward. And so I think to give us that time, this would be the best option.
And so presuming this passes, then the information that Commissioner Strand talked about, we could work on and provide that.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I add one more thing, Mr. Chair? So Bruce and I were in the room when April talked about this, initially proposed it. And I think what the good thing about good leadership is, if there's something that's not going well, to be willing to make a change. I think that's a good thing. And I think we realize this is not turning out how it had been presented to us, and through no one's fault in particular, just how things have gone. And I think it's a good sign for us to say, you know what, this is not working and we need to make some changes. And so I think this is a good first step, and I think there's some other things, and I think it's not just engineering though, it's finance. Man, we have a great team, and we're all part of the team. And so we all have to work together. We know we have an issue, and this is an opportunity for us to fix that. But the worst thing you can do is start throwing everybody under the bus on your own team. I played football, and when you had a guy that wasn't part of the team and started, he didn't last long. Thank you.
In response, I don't play on a team here. I work for the people of Fargo. If I disagree with what we're doing, I'm going to tell them about that. So what I hear is a lot of people angry that I told people in the city of Fargo exactly where their dollars are going. If this was public knowledge and everyone knew about it, it would have been a nothing burger. No one would have said anything about it. The papers would have ran it. People said, yeah, we already know about that. But this has become the #1 issue in a citywide election. So that should tell you something. So to say that is disrespectful to people who are outraged by this. So I don't work for you, I don't work for the mayor, I don't work for anybody else but the people of Fargo.
Commissioner Strand.
Commissioner Grinberg, I'd like to ask again, just so I'm understanding our intention and whether or not it's reflected in the actual motion you presented. In 2003, when they modified the infrastructure funding policies, they made it retroactive to 1999 because of the works in progress and already on the books and underway. And the motion included that retroactive component so that it was understood that began and went back in time and it was inclusive of those previous projects. I'm not so sure the motion as it's presented now includes 2016 and 2017 clearly, or if that's your intention to.
And that's why I asked Brenda the question to clarify, that it's going back to 2013 policy for projects in the here and now that we're working on, knowing that's going to be a revisit to this with, after the next commission is seated and a task force, or however we're going to define this, looks into the details. So I understand your question, the granularity of the details. That's why I asked Brenda the question to find out if she's comfortable and it addresses where you're coming from. Because I think if I heard you correctly, you said back to 2003 to back forward, that doesn't catch all of this.
No, they went from the motion policy modification in 2003 was retroactive to 1999.
He's going back to the last policy change. He's just wanting if you want to take this 15 to 13, do you want to take anything that happened from 13 to, or from 15 on? Do you want to correct that as well? There's two projects that he's referencing.
When the 2015 policy was voted on in the end of 2015, it was for 2016 at 45-55 and then 50-50 from 2017 and on. And we have the Broadway North project, we have other projects. I'm just wanting to know, and then I guess I'd still like to know the financial implications of what that decision means. If we uncouple those previous policies and go back to 2013 versus current policies, I'd like to know tangibly the dollars and cents of that and our method of financing so we're not surprised. I'm in complete favor of revisiting these aspects of the policy. And I'll add other elements to the policy too. The 1% surcharge needs to be vetted. The issue of security, especially in Greenfield's expansion, this issue of security bonds or security or in some instances letters of credit. I want to know that's adequate for covering the people who could be at risk. We need to know about the zoning. There's like on South 4th Street, there's an example of a house that's by zoning, it doubles their costs because they have a mother-in-law suite, and it's listed as a multiple family residence. And the issue of arterial routes is, I think, critical for us to evaluate. We saw on North Broadway where with Mr. Savageau and them, he said they had 10 times their assessments that people on the other side of the street because they're technically on an arterial route. And then, of course, the definition of benefits. Somebody who has on Broadway or 4th Street when they're running trunk lines and utilities from one end of town to the other, I'm not sure it benefits that house as we think it does. Directly benefits them. So these are things I want us to just really vet. And I'm on the same page entirely about the desire to get these, to modify our policies so that they're less impactful to the property owners, but I also want to know the impact to the general broader community and the costs that would be and how we would be paying for that. So I'm all on board. My general sense is I just think we need some time.
The problem, John, is you have the Broadway specials in front of you now, and we have 2 weeks to do something in front, and then it takes time for Dan to do all the calculations, so I have to allow him that time. This is an interim step, and you can do more when we go into the whole policy about everything, but to make a change now in the interim step, that's what you have to do. Otherwise, your old policy, when he comes forth with the Broadway specials, it's going to be the 50-50. So unless we make action tonight, that's what's going to happen. Secondary deal, when we've talked, when Bruce Grubb and I have talked, we think the estimate is 6 to 12 million that this may cause some additional costs. We will get refinements over the next 2 weeks. We'll bring it back to the commission if you want, or I assume you want. But the reality is either we change it tonight and then Dan can get it actually properly vetted so that when we bring it back to us in 4 weeks, we'll have it all ready for you and you can see it. And we can do a brown bag in the interim time frame close to that time so you can see what effect it has on your homeowners. Any other discussion? Mr. Strand.
Commissioner Grinberg, in your estimation, is the 70-30 versus a 50-50 split the heart of your topic that you
Yes.
really want us? Could we just focus on that tonight, only that aspect of it, and make that retroactive?
Well, I'm looking to the guidance of the experts here on implementing this, and that's why I asked the question again to Brenda.
The best way to implement this, John, is to go back to old policy. Otherwise, you're nitpicking policy. So the best way to do an interim change is to go back to old policy and not nitpick. Caps are very important on this. If you don't have caps, it's not just 70-30. It's 70-30 plus caps plus a variety of other things that are present. It's a 6-page document.
And just to add to that, we know the Broadway,
Correct. You're completely correct. Is to take one section and just adjust it. So if you go back to the 2013 policy, for instance, for water main replacements, which I'm assuming is what you're alluding to on the 70-30, that wasn't 70-30, that was a cap. It was a cap water main cost, a cap sewer cost, and a cap paving cost. It was approximately on some of the projects about 70-30, but they were capped costs. So with that policy in the 2013 policy, it was all capped. And so I think our feeling is if there's a decision made today, the best decision would be just to go to that policy. We do know it's tried and true, and we know how to implement it. If we kind of handpick some things, we won't be able to tell you the complete impact that would have on maybe some other categories that we're not going to think about right off our feet here.
So another way of asking the question then, we pass this tonight, the residents along Broadway are going to pay less.
Correct.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I'd like to move that we amend Commissioner Grinberg's motion to include that the motion is retroactive until, back until December of 2015.
Is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion.
My point is that there's less gray area if we're really intending that right now, and that's where we're at, is that our intention is to these projects from 2016 and 2017 and forthcoming that are in the mill already and in the works, some already done, that our intention is to go back to the 2013 policies for funding as they were spelled out then, and we're all on the same page. That's what we intend. I just don't want any haziness to that.
So your intent is to catch the two projects that were previously funded at a different ratio than 70-30?
Yes.
Eric, did you have something to say?
Yeah, prior to that suggested amendment, I've been listening for this and comfortable with it. I just want it clear that that the motion isn't to be construed to abrogate some obligation we have out there. To the extent there is a project where special assessments have already been decided and those special assessments pledged to pay bonds, we're going to work on what I thought you were working on was sometime between now and July, we'd figure out exactly how we would go about doing that. Just want to make sure it's clear we're not abrogating an obligation that we have to bondholders.
To his point right now, the bondholders have the obligation by the city, John, to pay those specials, so you don't want to confuse your public on that. So Commissioner Grinberg, or Commissioner...
That's okay. Mr. Chair, so my question is for Dan. So then if we did that, what Commissioner Strand is proposing, would we have to go back and respread some of those projects? Is that even possible, Dan? I guess that's my question for you. How do you go back how do you go back in time? Is that possible? Can you answer that?
It is possible. We have the projects currently set up in the current policy. We'd have to pull those out and reallocate off the old policy. So we'd have to do recalculations on everything, but yes, it is possible.
So then what happened to the taxpayers? They would get a change in their specials. The city of Fargo would pick up the difference, is basically what would happen.
Basically, yes.
So they'd be paying, they'd get credit for what they'd paid, and then they go to the new policy.
If they paid off their specials, we'll have to do some type of refund.
Okay.
If they have a current balance, we'll pull it off their balance.
So it could be done.
Could be done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Grinberg.
Question for Eric then. I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it, and it's legal.
I mean, I think it can be done, yes. I mean, we do have to evaluate it. We need to include bond counsel to figure out the proper wording, and so I think it's very workable. But we will have to come. We may have to come back to you and come up with that precise language. This is a fairly recent issue, and it will take some work.
Interesting discussion. Glad I seconded it. Do we have any idea what a dollar amount? This is where we start to get so in
Yeah,
depth.
could you just tell us the two projects, how much they were totally worth?
I don't have that information with me.
It's not 50, 60 million. The projects themselves.
The projects, probably a few million each.
2 million each. Does that make you more comfortable? It's a pleasure of the group. Okay, the amendment is what we have to vote on now.
And I have further discussion about the broader amendment that I'll not attach to our discussions about the amendment for retroactivity.
So roll call vote on the amendment? Or did you want to say something? Okay. Shelley?
Strand,
Yes.
Grinberg,
No.
Pepcorn. No. Gary,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yes. Any other discussion on the motion?
Mayor, if I might.
Commissioner Strand?
I'm going to indulge our expertise of our legal counsel about parliamentary procedure, just so we're on the same page again. Your motion is to rescind and to reinstate. And there's a rescinding motion cannot technically happen if you've reconsidered something in the past, and I don't know going back to 2015. But the biggest hurdle of rescinding a motion is you cannot rescind anything if there are already implementations of such a previous action that had already borne out financial consequences. And you can't rescind something if there have been financial consequences and implementations put in place. I just want to make sure, is that what you're saying, that there may have been? Or with the retroactivity going back to 2016 and 17, is that adequate to measure those consequences financially by the new shifts of going back to the 2013 policies?
I think my answer is twofold. One, I see this as not a motion to rescind a previous motion made in November of 2016 or 15. This is just a policy that you're rescinding and reinstating an old policy, different than the parliamentary procedure of rescinding a prior motion from last month or a previous meeting. In terms of the impacts of the decision, I mean, the merits of that rescission of a motion fall into play here. And again, I mean, I don't want to urge for one decision or the other, but the idea of working on the problem of what to do with those measures, those special assessments that already have been approved, that occurred after November of 2015, and to figure out exactly how those need to work is a fair amount of detail. We have to figure out what those projects are, what the language in the resolutions were, because those are the pledges to the bondholders. We just need to look at that and figure out how you would unwind that ball of yarn. Do I think it's possible? Yes, I do, but it's certainly appropriate to look at it before you say exactly how do you solve that problem. So the idea of, again, what I thought the main motion was designed to look forward to July to sort of figure out how the new policy, or rescission back to the old policy, impacts those interim activities, those interim special assessments, gives us a couple of months to work on that, come back with a specific solution. Still retroactive, just gives us a couple of months to work on it. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
Can we do roll call vote, or do you want to?
You just voted on the amendment.
We voted on the amendment.
No, but we had a motion for the first motion.
Commissioner Grinberg, is your sense of intention of your motion to have us then, prior to voting on the Broadway project and the two that are in the works already, is your intention that we would, prior to voting on that, whoever's sitting at this commission would know the financial implications of whatever it is the policy changes were, and that would be in front of us and mapped out? Is your intention to get that then, as part of when that comes back to us?
My understanding, that would come back to us before the election for the next.
Come back in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And with financial breakdowns and uncoupling what it would mean and
We'll
look
have
like?
the Broadway financial.
Yep, that'll all be laid out, yes.
That's your intention? Okay.
Or before the new commission seated, that would be the. Yep.
Well, on the continuance, we put in 4 weeks, so that's when it comes back to us. It can be continued at that point if people aren't comfortable, but that's when it's going to come back to us.
Mayor, I have one last question. I think.
You're
What
testing
is,
the patience of the council. but-
What are the recommendations of the Special Assessment Commission?
Special Assessment Commission looks at assessments. It does not make policy.
So they, okay, they haven't visited about this, or? Yep.
Roll call vote?
Grinberg.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Gary.
Yes.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Yes. Item 20, an agreement regarding extraterritorial zoning, jurisdiction, and annexation, City of West Fargo, City of Fargo. Jim Gilmore to explain.
What we have here for your consideration is a new extraterritorial zoning and annexation agreement between the City of Fargo and West Fargo. The extraterritorial zoning governs what areas you're able to zone outside your city. The annexation agreement really sets what the future boundary, and is an agreement not to annex into either city's extraterritorial zoning jurisdictions. We put these agreements together so that the city can do long-range planning as far as infrastructure, arterial roads, and land use planning. For the past several months, the mayor and City Administrator Bruce Grubb have been discussing the boundaries with the City of West Fargo. Since our current agreement was set to expire at the end of this year, and because there were some property owners who were in the West Fargo area who wanted to move into the Fargo area, and we looked closely at that, and that seemed to make some sense. We felt it was important to amend the agreement now. We're also in some discussions with Riley's Acres so that in the future, the 57th Street corridor, both sides would be within the City of Fargo.